Hartford Hart Williams stepped out of the transport van, his boots sinking into the thick Arctic snow. The wind howled, a relentless force that seemed to pierce through his heavy parka, chilling him to the bone. He stood at the threshold of the Ice Hotel, a structure that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. As he gazed upon the hotel, a sense of awe and trepidation washed over him. The hotel loomed before him, a majestic yet eerie presence. Its walls, crafted from the purest ice, shimmered in the dim Arctic light, casting an otherworldly glow. It was as if the hotel itself was a living, breathing entity, a part of the frozen wilderness that surrounded it. Hart adjusted his gloves, his fingers numb from the cold. He had seen photographs and documentaries about this place, but nothing could have prepared him for the sheer magnitude and enigmatic aura of the Ice Hotel. It was as if the hotel was not just a building, but a gateway to another realm, a place where the boundaries between reality and fantasy blurred. As he stepped closer, a subtle shifting sound caught his attention. It was as if the very ice itself was creaking, whispering secrets that only the wind could carry. Hart turned, his eyes scanning the endless Arctic landscape, but all he saw was the vast, desolate beauty of the frozen wilderness. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence. "Smaller than I expected," someone muttered from behind. Hart, however, had a different perspective. The hotel felt immense, its translucent walls shimmering with an otherworldly light, as if they were not entirely solid. He had a fleeting sensation that the walls were not just barriers, but portals to unseen dimensions. For a brief moment, Hart swore he saw the walls move. They expanded and contracted, a slow, rhythmic motion, like the gentle rise and fall of a chest during sleep. He blinked, and the illusion faded, leaving only the silent, frozen stillness of the Arctic night. Then, a voice, bright and warm, cut through the cold. "Welcome to the Ice Hotel." A man stood at the entrance, his curly hair peeking out from beneath his hat, his eyes sparkling with a confidence that seemed out of place in this frozen realm. "I'm Larry, your ice concierge for the week. Trust me, you're going to love it here." Hart, however, was not so easily convinced. There was an air of mystery and danger about this place that he couldn't shake off. Stepping into the Ice Hotel was like entering a realm of frozen beauty and intrigue. The vaulted ceiling, adorned with an enormous chandelier crafted from frozen prisms, shimmered overhead, casting an ethereal light upon the icy surroundings. The air was thick with cold, a constant reminder of the unforgiving Arctic climate. The walls, a canvas of ice, were adorned with intricate sculptures. Creatures, frozen in intricate detail, seemed to come alive, their eyes capturing the essence of the wild. Landscapes, etched into the frozen panels, told stories of ancient times, when the world was young and untamed. And among these sculptures, figures stood, their lifelike presence almost too real to be believed. To the right, an enormous elephant head, carved from a single block of ice, dominated the scene, its trunk curling downward, and its tusks, gleaming in the pale light, were a testament to the skill of the sculptor. But it was the eyes that captured Hart's attention. Two dark gemstones, embedded deep within the sculpture, shimmered with an otherworldly light. They seemed to hold a secret, a hidden power that sent a shiver down Hart's spine. As he stepped further into the lobby, a massive ice-carved wolf caught his eye. Its frozen fur, etched with such precision, seemed to capture the very essence of the wind, as if it had been captured in the midst of a howl. The eyes, sharp and alert, seemed to lock onto something unseen, something that only the wolf could perceive. Hart turned away, a sense of unease creeping into his heart. He had an irrational urge to check if the statue had moved, as if it held some hidden power that could bring it to life. A soft whistle broke the silence. "Wow," a voice murmured. "It's like stepping into another world." Hart turned, his gaze meeting that of a woman standing beside him. She was bundled in a thick coat, her dark hair tucked beneath a knit hat, her cheeks flushed with a mix of curiosity and excitement. "First time here?" she asked, her brown eyes gleaming with anticipation. Hart nodded, a sense of awe and trepidation washing over him. "Yeah, it's a lot to take in." The weight of his father's letter, a reminder to live better than I did, lingered in his mind. It was this letter that had pushed him to embark on this journey, to seek adventure and self-discovery in this surreal, frozen realm. "I'm Patrice," the woman introduced herself, offering a gloved hand. "Hart," he replied, shaking her hand. As Larry began distributing room keys, Patrice explained that this trip had been a long-held dream, something she had always wanted to experience with her ex-husband. "I figured, why not?" she said with a small, self-deprecating shrug. "Life's short." Hart understood that feeling all too well. The Ice Hotel, with its enigmatic allure, seemed to promise an adventure like no other, a chance to confront the unknown and perhaps find a deeper meaning in life. As the night deepened, Hart lay on his ice-carved bed, wrapped in thick reindeer hides. He had expected the cold to keep him awake, but the furs, a gift from the hotel's staff, were surprisingly warm, cocooning him in a blanket of comfort. His body, exhausted from the journey, relaxed into a deep slumber, but his mind, restless and curious, refused to settle. He thought about the sculptures, the wolf, the elephant, and the other enigmatic figures that adorned the hotel. They were too perfect, too lifelike, and something about them unsettled him. He turned onto his side, pulling the blankets tighter, trying to shake off the feeling that he was being watched. His breath misted in the frigid air, a reminder of the cold that surrounded him. And then he heard it. A slow, almost imperceptible sound, a breath, soft and deliberate. Hart held his own breath, straining to listen. The sound came again, a rhythmic, steady beat, like the gentle rise and fall of the ocean's waves. The ice was breathing. Hart shot upright, his heart pounding in his chest. His gaze darted to the walls. The air around him felt thicker, heavier. The frost patterns on the walls seemed to have shifted, as if the very ice itself was alive, moving and breathing. Hart swallowed hard, a sense of dread creeping into his heart. It had to be his imagination, didn't it? The next morning, Hart entered the lounge, expecting to find the other guests gathering for breakfast. But as he stepped into the room, a sense of unease washed over him. The lounge was nearly empty. Patrice sat stiffly at the ice-carved bar, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug, her knuckles white with tension. Hart hesitated, his gaze scanning the room. Something was wrong. "Where is everyone?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. Patrice didn't look up. "Gone." Hart frowned. "What do you mean, gone?" Her fingers tightened around the mug, her voice trembling. "I woke up and the hallways were empty. No staff, no other guests, just nothing." Hart's stomach twisted, a knot of fear forming in his gut. "Maybe they left?" he tried, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew it was a futile attempt to rationalize the situation. There was no way a dozen guests and an entire staff had simply vanished overnight. Patrice finally turned to look at him, and in her eyes, Hart saw a reflection of his own fear. "No one's checked out," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Their stuff is still in their rooms." Hart's skin prickled, a chill running down his spine. Then he saw it. Near the far wall, where an empty space had been the night before, a new ice sculpture stood, a human figure, fresh and still melting. His breath hitched in his throat. It was Larry, the concierge who had greeted them at the entrance, now frozen, a silent sentinel, his eyes forever closed. Hart took a slow, shuddering step back, his heart pounding in his chest. Larry hadn't disappeared. He had been turned into ice. You're as intrigued as Hart. Go ahead and like this video and share it with a fellow horror fan. Now let's dive deeper into the chilling mystery. Hart's breath came in shallow gasps, his chest heaving with a mix of fear and disbelief. This wasn't possible. Ice sculptures didn't just appear, and they certainly didn't resemble people who had been alive just moments ago. He turned to Patrice, who stood beside him, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. She slowly reached out, her gloved fingers hovering over Larry's frozen cheek, as if she needed to touch the ice to confirm its reality. "Patrice!" Hart started, but it was too late. Her gloved fingers brushed against Larry's frozen skin, and in that moment, a sound, so faint that Hart barely registered it at first, emanated from the ice. A whisper. Not the kind that echoes in an empty hallway, but a whisper that seemed to come from within the very heart of the ice itself. Patrice yanked her hand back, her eyes wide with terror. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Hart's pulse pounded in his ears, a steady, rhythmic beat. He had heard it too, a faint, distant voice calling out for help. "Help me," the voice whispered, its plea coming from inside the ice. Larry's frozen lips hadn't moved, but the whisper had been real, a chilling reminder that something sinister was afoot. Hart grabbed Patrice's arm, his grip tight with urgency. "We have to go," he said, his voice laced with fear. Patrice didn't argue. As they turned toward the hallway, the lounge suddenly felt colder, the frost on the walls thickening, creeping outward like veins, a chilling reminder of the ice's power. The ice hotel wasn't just trapping them, it was consuming them, enveloping them in a frozen embrace from which there might be no escape. The hallways of the ice hotel were not what they seemed. As Hart and Patrice hurried through the frozen corridors, they realized that the hotel was not just a static structure, but a living, breathing entity. The corridors were shifting, changing, as if the very fabric of the hotel was alive and aware of their presence. Doors that had once led to guest suites now opened into vast, empty chambers, their purpose unknown. The intricate ice sculptures, once stationary, seemed to have moved, their positions altered as if by an unseen hand. The wolf statue, the one that had stood in the lobby, was now here in the middle of the hallway, its head turned slightly, its eyes locked onto Hart and Patrice. A trick of the light, Hart told himself, but deep down he knew it was more than that. The wolf seemed to be watching them, its eyes holding a secret, a warning perhaps, of the dangers that lurked within the ice hotel. The whispers returned, faint but insistent, curling through the cold air like tendrils of smoke. "Stay," they whispered, their voices soft and alluring. "Join us." The words slithered through Hart's mind, creeping into the deepest recesses of his thoughts, a seduction that he had to resist. He clenched his jaw, shaking his head violently, determined not to succumb to the hotel's sinister allure. "Don't listen," he hissed at Patrice, his voice laced with urgency. She swallowed hard, her eyes wide with fear, her grip on Hart's arm tight, as if she needed the physical connection to ground herself in this surreal reality. The hallway stretched before them, endless and unfamiliar, a labyrinth of ice and mystery. The ice hotel was shifting, reshaping itself around them, a malevolent force that seemed to delight in their confusion and fear. And then they saw it. A door, unlike the others, the black door. It wasn't made of ice. It wasn't made of anything that Hart could recognize. The black door loomed at the end of the hallway, its surface warped and uneven, as if it were a gateway to another dimension, a place that shouldn't exist within the confines of the Ice Hotel. The moment Hart laid eyes on it, his entire being screamed at him to turn around, to run, to escape this place of horrors. Patrice, standing beside him, shivered, her eyes wide with fear. That wasn't here before, she whispered, her voice trembling. Hart barely heard her. His attention was fixed on the door, on the sense of wrongness that emanated from it. Something was behind that door, something waiting, something watching. The whispers had stopped, but the air had turned still, thick with anticipation, as if the hotel itself was holding its breath, waiting for Hart and Patrice to make their next move. Hart took a slow step forward, his boots crunching against the frost-covered floor. "Don't," Patrice breathed, her voice little more than a whisper. "We don't know what's on the other side." A sound, low and unnatural, emanated from behind the door, a sound that sent a shiver down Hart's spine, like something massive shifting, like something alive. Hart reached out, his fingers hovering over the handle, his heart pounding in his chest. The door was warm. The first warm thing he had felt since arriving at the Ice Hotel. That was wrong. That was so wrong. Patrice grabbed his wrist, her voice shaking. "Hart, please. We don't know what's behind that door." Hart exhaled sharply, a sense of relief washing over him. The moment was broken. The door, whatever it was, wasn't an escape. It was something else, something they weren't supposed to find. He let go of the handle, his fingers lingering for a moment before pulling away. The black door pulsed, a subtle movement that sent a shiver down Hart's spine. Hart pulled Patrice back, his grip tight with urgency. "We need to find another way," he said, his voice laced with determination. As they turned to walk away, a deep groan echoed through the hall, a chilling reminder that the Ice Hotel was not happy with their presence. The world outside the Ice Hotel had vanished. The snow, the sky, the Arctic wilderness, all had been swallowed by the hotel's insatiable appetite. The windows, once a portal to the outside world, now showed only more ice, as if the hotel had expanded, consuming everything beyond its walls. There was no longer an outside, only the endless expanse of frozen beauty and terror. Patrice gripped Hart's wrist tighter, her nails digging into his jacket, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't think we can leave," she whispered, her voice breaking. Hart set his jaw, a determination burning in his eyes. "Then we find a way," he said, his voice steady. But the hallways twisted and turned, endless and unfamiliar, a maze that seemed to have no end. They had long since lost track of where they were, the front desk, the lobby, and the exit, all mere memories of a world that no longer existed. There was only ice, and it was watching them. Hart's breath misted in the air, a reminder of the cold that surrounded them, but he knew it was more than that. The ice was alive, and it was aware of their presence, a malevolent force that seemed to delight in their fear and confusion. And then, for the first time since waking up that morning, they saw another person, a woman. She stood at the far end of the hallway, her back to them, her body shrouded in a thick coat, her hair cascading down her back, a silent sentinel in this frozen realm. Patrice let out a relieved breath. "Oh my God, someone else," she whispered, her voice laced with hope. Hart, however, wasn't so sure. Something was wrong. The woman didn't move, didn't shift, didn't react to their presence. Hart hesitated, his eyes fixed on the woman, a sense of unease creeping into his heart. "Hey!" Patrice called, her voice breaking the silence. The woman's shoulders twitched, a subtle movement that sent a shiver down Hart's spine. But she still didn't turn. Hart grabbed Patrice's arm, his grip tight with urgency. "We need to go," he said, his voice laced with fear. Patrice frowned, her eyes fixed on the woman. She might need help. "No," Hart whispered, his voice steady. "She's not what she seems." The woman moved, not turned, not walked, just shifted. One moment she was still, a silent sentinel in the hallway. The next, she was closer. Hart's stomach turned to ice, a chill running down his spine. The woman still didn't face them, her body a silent, frozen statue, her breath curling in the air, slow and rhythmic. But her body was too still. Hart didn't wait. He grabbed Patrice's wrist and yanked her backward, his heart pounding in his chest. The woman twitched again, a subtle movement that sent a shiver down their spines. And suddenly, she was right in front of them. Hart didn't think. He didn't breathe. He ran. The ice hotel is alive. The guests are vanishing. And now, something is coming. What do you think is happening? Drop your theories in the comments. But hurry, before the ice takes you too. The ice hotel was no longer just a structure. It was alive, and it was feeding. Hart's breath came in short, sharp bursts as he pulled Patrice back from the advancing figure of ice. It wasn't just a statue anymore. Its face was expressionless, frozen in time, but its eyes followed them. A shudder crawled down Hart's spine as the figure took another slow, deliberate step forward. Patrice's voice was barely a whisper. It moved. Hart barely managed to breathe. "We need to run." But the air around them had changed. It had turned colder, not the usual Arctic cold, but something deeper, a primal cold that sank into the bones and wrapped itself around the soul. He grabbed Patrice's arm and pulled her. "Run!" They sprinted down the icy hallway, their boots sliding on the slick floor. But something felt wrong. The corridors were shifting, stretching, bending. The hotel was changing around them. The ice beneath them shifted, no longer solid, but pulsing, almost breathing. Hart felt an unnatural resistance, as if the floor wanted to trap him mid-step. The walls around them blurred, stretching endlessly in both directions, curving like they were inside a frozen lung, expanding and contracting. The walls were alive. Every turn felt wrong. A hallway that had once been 50 feet long now stretched into the endless distance. Hart felt it. The ice hotel was breathing. The walls pulsed. A deep, slow rumble vibrated through the structure, steady and rhythmic. A heartbeat. Patrice stumbled. Hart caught her wrist. And then the whispers began. Software murmuring, "Don't leave. Stay with us." Hart clenched his jaw. Number he wasn't listening. But Patrice, she was looking at the walls. Her eyes were wide. She was listening. Hart shook her hard. "Patrice, don't listen to it." She blinked, like waking from a trance. The walls shuddered. The whispers grew louder. "We see you. You belong here now." A shadow moved beneath the ice. Something inside the walls, crawling, twisting. Hart pulled Patrice forward. "Go." And then, a door appeared. The door that shouldn't exist. It hadn't been there before. A black door. Unlike the other doors, which were carved from perfect, translucent ice, this one was different. The frame was warped, uneven, pulsing. Hart could feel something behind it, waiting, watching. Patrice grabbed his arm. This is it. This is the way out. Hart hesitated. How did she know? A low hiss slithered through the air. Hart reached for the handle, his fingers numb from the cold, and then the whispers screamed, "Don't leave!" The walls collapsed inward. A force, an impossible, crushing weight, pressed on them. The door was the only escape. Hart turned the handle, and the world changed, the frozen abyss. Instead of the Arctic tundra, there was nothing. No sky, no snow, just darkness, a vast, endless void stretching downward forever. Hart's breath caught in his throat. What is this? He stepped closer, and then something moved. Shapes, shifting below the surface. Far down in the abyss, something alive stirred. Patrice gasped. We can't go this way. Hart's mind screamed. The abyss wanted them. And the worst part? Some part of him wanted to jump. The whispers sighed around them, softer now. Fall. Join us. Hart forced himself to step back. They had to find another way, the hotel's secret. They turned and slammed the black door shut. The walls shuddered. The ice groaned, like it was angry. Patrice clutched Hart's arm. It's alive, she whispered. It's a trap. Hart nodded, his stomach twisting. The guests hadn't disappeared. They hadn't left. They had been taken, turned into ice. The sculptures, they weren't art. They were people. And now, the hotel wanted them too. The final escape. They ran again. The corridors twisted, stretched, bent. Reality was warping. The whispers grew deafening. The walls shook. Then, Patrice screamed. Hart turned. She was frozen in place, not by fear, by ice. It was spreading up her legs, creeping over her skin. Hart lunged. He grabbed her arms, pulled. The ice cracked, let go. They stumbled forward and saw it, a second door, white. Unlike the black door, this one was pure, bright. Hart threw it open. A gust of real frigid air slammed into them. Snow, the Arctic tundra, the real world. They staggered outside. Hart turned, and the ice hotel was gone. Nothing but snow and silence, as if it had never existed. The ice hotel is gone, but is it? Drop your theories in the comments, but be careful, because sometimes the ice remembers.